Hey, spooky people, it's your best friend Kenny, and this is part 2 of tier 4 of my Iceberg series on Unsolved Mysteries and Weird Things by Juan the Pickle. Juan, you're still the man? We keep going deeper and deeper into the iceberg and learning about more and more strange and disturbing unsolved mysteries and weird anomalies. Let's get spooky. Mickey Mouse in Vietnam. Mickey Mouse in Vietnam is an unofficial, short, animated, anti-war film created in 1968 by Whitney Lee Savage, who turns out to have been the father of Adam Savage from Mythbusters, and Milton Glaser. Disney had nothing to do with this production. Should be noted that this clip is not suitable for children. This stark and violent portrayal of the beloved Disney character was shocking and disturbing, especially for the time. The film was created during the height of the Vietnam War and aimed to be a powerful statement against the war's brutality. Using Mickey Mouse, a cartoon that is supposed to symbolize innocence and childhood, amplified the tragedy of war. It was produced independently and circulated outside of mainstream channels, and it was often shown at anti-war protests. Mickey Mouse in Vietnam is a cult classic and a significant piece of anti-war cinema. This is interesting because obviously this is pre-internet, and this is before we had a lot of this content sort of readily available to us. Nowadays you could look up any of these popular cartoon characters and you can see them do all sorts of things and have all sorts of messages. But back in the 60s, it was not only a lot harder to produce this type of content, but it was much harder to distribute this type of content because no one had the internet. So in order to see these things, you would have to find it, on video somewhere or watch it, like I said, as some sort of protest or something like that. It shows you how throughout time people have used art and have used characters from our culture to subvert certain types of messages or subvert political messages. And this is sort of a fantastic piece of cinema because it was able to, despite being distributed unofficially, despite being passed around by word of mouth and hand to hand, it became a popular piece of work. White holes. Now you've heard of black holes, but have you heard of white holes? Well, white holes are the theoretical opposite of black holes. Imagine a black hole, but instead of sucking everything in, it's spewing matter and energy out. That's the idea. Nothing can enter a white hole, just like nothing can escape a black hole. The theory of white holes come from the same equations as general relativity that predict black holes. However, unlike black holes, which have been observed, white holes have never been observed. It's essentially like watching a video in reverse. White holes are thought to emit matter and light, and to be constantly emitting streams of matter and light. Some theories suggest that white holes could be connected to black holes through hypothetical tunnels in space-time called wormholes. However, this is a theory about a theory. So it's very, that take is very speculative. There has never been any evidence of white holes. There are a lot of theories about how white holes would form. Some theories suggest that it could be the result of a black hole's collapse, or that the Big Bang was a white hole. The Big Bang has similarities to this theory. It was an event that spewed out vast amount of matter and energy. Again, these are astrophysical concepts that I'm not very qualified to discuss, but you should look into if you find this stuff interesting, which I do. The Lake Anjikuni disappearance. The Lake Anjikuni disappearance is a mystery from the 1930s in Lake Anjikuni, which is a remote area in what is now called Nunavut, Canada, and part of an Inuit village. A fur trapper named Joe LaBelle arrived at the village seeking shelter and found the village completely deserted. It wasn't just a few people that were gone. The entire village of about 30 people had vanished without a trace. LaBelle had found unfinished meals, personal belongings left behind, and even a fire still burning. There was a grave that appeared to have been disturbed, as if it had been dug up. There were no signs of struggle or foul play. There were no footprints or tracks leading away from the village, and no one ever reported seeing the villagers leave. Obviously, since this is a strange disappearance, there are a wide range of theories that happened here. Some believe that a sudden avalanche or natural disaster could have wiped out the village. However, there's no physical evidence that supports this. Others believe that a rapid and deadly disease might have forced the villagers to flee or caused them to die quickly and be buried elsewhere. But there were no sites of, no evidence that supports this, including, bodies or anything like that. Of course, some people believe there was an alien abduction, a curse, or some other paranormal phenomenon. And another idea that's been floated out is perhaps this was just a situation of mass panic that caused the villagers to abandon their homes in sudden panic. Despite this being a fascinating mystery for more than a century now, investigations and attempt to explain the Lake Anjikuni disappearance have been unsuccessful. The fact that the location was so remote and the passage of time has made it difficult to gather any sort of reliable evidence. A lot of this is second, third, fourth hand observations. And there have been conflicting accounts about what happened. Kind of like how, a game of telephone here. Mass disappearances like this are always fascinating to me. I think probably the most likely scenario is there was some sort of situation where the villagers were made to leave or captured, or there was some sort of foul play here. Because in the event of a natural disaster, there would be a lot more evidence, right? There would be more, there'd be bodies of things that happened. So either, the entire town just up and left, or something made the entire town go with them. It's still fascinating, though. Virginia Carpenter. Virginia Carpenter is a unsolved disappearance case. Mary Virginia Carpenter who is often called Jimmy, was 20 years old at the time of her disappearance. She was from Texarkana, Texas. The people who knew her said she was a bright young woman who had plans to attend summer classes at the Texas State College for Women, which is now known as Texas Women's University, in Denton, Texas, to pursue a career as a nurse or lab technician. Virginia disappeared on June 1st, 1948. She boarded a train called the Texas Special Train from Texarkana to Denton. She was last seen taking a taxi from the Denton train station to the college campus around 9:30 p.m. She never arrived at her dormitory, and no one ever saw her again. Despite investigations, no trace of Virginia has ever been found. Her luggage was discovered on the lawn of her dormitory, but there were no signs of foul play or any indication of where she may have gone. And so, like with all these unsolved disappearances cases, there are, a few typical theories, right? The first being foul play, that she was the victim of a crime, possibly by the taxi driver or someone else that she encountered. Others believe that she may have suffered from amnesia and wandered off, unable to remember who she was. And some people believe she ran away, intentionally disappeared to start a new life. Law enforcement has investigated the case, conducted interviews, followed up on leads, sought evidence, but nothing concrete has ever been established. The case gets renewed from time to time of people trying to use new technologies and investigative techniques to help solve this disappearance. Now, I believe that the most likely scenario here is that she was a victim of foul play. It seems like the taxi driver is probably a good place to start, as either that person was the last person to see Virginia. Well, that person is the last known person to see Virginia, but it's likely that the taxi driver was either involved or may have seen something after Virginia was dropped off. The luggage in the yard sort of suggests to me that at least the taxi driver got her to her destination of the campus. Something could have happened right after she was dropped off. Asha Degree. Asha Degree is an unsolved disappearance from Shelby, North Carolina. She disappeared in the year 2000. She was born August 5th, 1990. She was described as a shy, responsible young girl who loved reading and basketball. On February 14th, 2000, in the early morning hours of Valentine's Day, Asha left her family home. No one knows why. She packed a book bag with some of her belongings and walked out into the stormy night despite the rain and wind. Several motorists saw her walking around Highway 18. One driver turned around to offer help, but Asha ran into a wooded area and disappeared. She was last seen around 4 a.m. near a local business. There have been extensive investigations into her disappearance, but there's been no trace found of her. Her book bag was found 18 months later, wrapped in plastic, buried near a construction site about 26 miles from where she was last seen. A witness reported seeing a girl matching Asha's description getting into a dark green car around the time of her disappearance. In September 2024, investigators announced that they now believe that Asha was a victim of a homicide. Search warrants have been executed at multiple properties in Cleveland County, and a car similar to the one described in the potential sighting, the green car, was recovered. This is a significant break in this case. However, details are still limited because it's an active investigation. This is almost assuredly a foul play situation. And really the question sort of becomes, well, where was she going? And that probably leads you to what happened to her. Or she could have been going somewhere and gotten taken or was a victim of foul play on the way there. But it sort of sounds like to me that maybe she was going to meet somebody. But as a 9-year-old, that's pretty crazy. This is just a heartbreaking story. And there's so many weird parts about this case. I don't know how a 9-year-old leaves a house like that and gets that far without somebody noticing. Well, I mean, people noticed, but it seemed like something that if someone had intervened, they would have saved her life. Timothy Pitson. This is a somewhat recent case that's sort of local to me. Timothy Pitson was a young boy from Aurora, Illinois, who disappeared in 2011. This case got national attention due to how strange it was. Timothy James Pitson was born on October 18th, 2004. He disappeared May 11th, 2011, so he was 6 years old. Timothy's mother, Amy Fry Pitson, unexpectedly checked him out of his kindergarten class on May 11th, 2011. She took him on a 3-day trip to various amusement parks and zoos in Illinois and Wisconsin. Timothy's mother was found dead by self-unaliving in a motel room in Rockford, Illinois on May 14th. She left a note behind that said that Timothy was safe with people who love and care for him and that he would never be found. That note is what makes this case so bizarre. He was safe and he would never be found. And true to her word, she's never been found. Timothy has never been located. His mother was very clearly in some sort of manic episode when she took Timothy. You know, the idea that he was safe and would never be found, at least in this context, isn't very comforting. Maybe she gave him to someone who gave him a new identity and disappeared, or helped him disappear or fade into the background. Or maybe that means something more sinister. I hope it's the former. I hope he's still alive and safe. Over the years, there have been a lot of reported sightings of Timothy, but none have ever been confirmed. In 2019, a young man claiming to be Timothy was found in Kentucky, but a DNA test proved that he was lying. Timothy's father, James Pitson, continues to hold out hope that he is still alive and would eventually be found. The Poe Toaster. The Poe Toaster is a person who pays annual tribute, or who paid annual tribute to the famous author Edgar Allan Poe at his grave in Baltimore. Every year on Poe's birthday, January 19, in the early hours of the morning, the Poe Toaster would appear at Westminster Hall and Burying Ground in Baltimore. He was always dressed in black with a wide-brimmed hat and a white scarf obscuring his face. The toaster would approach Poe's grave, pour a glass of cognac, and raise a toast. He would then leave 3 red roses and the unfinished bottle of cognac at the gravesite. After the toaster would go away.
A decades-long Baltimore tradition on display tonight. A nameless man paying tribute to Edgar Allan Poe at Poe's gravesite. WMER2 News' one of the newest reporters, Jack Watson, got a chance to experience it. He joins us now to give us his experience.
Well, Kelly, tomorrow is Edgar Allan Poe's 214th birthday, and tonight at the church where he's buried, an eccentric tribute to Baltimore's most famous poet. Suddenly, there came a tapping. A ghostly figure out of the shadows, like something Edgar Allan Poe himself would write. Flowers, words in Latin, and a toast. A tribute to the celebrated American writer who called Baltimore home. Tracy Mathias also calls Baltimore home. She grew up a few blocks from here and has been seeing this display in some form for years.
We used to hide out here at 3 o'clock in the morning and wait for the toaster to arrive. This was nice.
People have wondered since the 1930s who this guy is, or who, if there are multiple people involved, who these people are. It's likely that there are multiple toasters, that this is some sort of tradition that has been passed on through generations, as this tradition has continued for over 70 years. So it's unlikely that it's the same person. I'm surprised there haven't been, well, I'm sure there have been copycats. Some people believe that this is just a fan of Edgar Allan Poe paying homage to their favorite author. Others believe that this might have been a relative of Poe's or someone who was connected to the family. There are theories that there's some sort of secret society or literary group who's involved in this, dedicated to keeping Poe's memory alive. But this is a pretty great story, one of those great weird mysteries that people don't really wrap their heads around or really know a lot about if you're outside of the Baltimore area or aren't deep into the lore of Edgar Allan Poe. I like the idea that this is just some sort of tradition by some, family. This is some group out there or some family out there that has passed from generation to generation, being like, hey, it's very important, son or daughter, that you go to Edgar Allan Poe's grave and do this thing and disappear and be very sneaky and weird about it. There's also the possibility that it's just, someone heard about someone doing this and thought it would be neat to do this, and it sort of became a tradition in that way too. I've always liked Edgar Allan Poe. He was one of the first writers that I really got into. And, that obviously makes sense as being the spooky lawyer and being into spooky stuff. Edgar Allan Poe's work is very spooky. Annabelle Lee is a straight banger, though. The Teos hum. The Teos hum is a mysterious low-frequency humming noise that has been reported by a small percentage of residents of Teos, New Mexico, although there have been other reportings around the world. No one knows what this noise is. The hum is described as a low-pitched droning or rumbling sound, which is often compared to a distant diesel engine or perhaps a refrigerator humming, although there are varied descriptions. Some call it a hum, some describe it as a vibration, a pulsing, or even a whine. Only a small percentage of people in the affected area can hear the hum, about 2% of the population by estimates. And the hum is often more noticeable indoors and at night when the ambient noise is reduced. Now, the people who do hear it, the hum can be distracting, annoying, can cause sleep disturbances, headaches, and some have even reported nosebleeds. Although the source of the hum is unknown, there are theories, right? Some believe it's nearby industrial equipment or power lines that are causing the hum. But if that were the cause, you would think that would be a lot easier to identify. Some believe that the hum could be related to geological activity, such as tectonic plate movement or underground water flow. There is also a concept called otoacoustic emissions, which is where the human ear generates its own sounds. And there's a belief that this might be why some people hear the hum. And there are people who believe that this is just people with tinnitus. I believe that this is probably some sort of a noise pollution issue, whether it's, an industrial thing. I think it's most likely a man-made noise issue. Although the idea that there's something in this area that's causing the ear to produce this sound is sort of fascinating to me. But, the other thing is there are frequencies that people can't hear, right? And some people can hear a certain frequency and some people can't hear for certain frequencies. So, this could just be a certain frequency that could be either industrial or natural that these certain people can hear for whatever reason when it's let out. Either way, it sounds like that would be very annoying. I would hate to have that kind of noise in my head all the time, and I would probably move. Heartbeat in the brain. With every beat of your heart, blood surges through the arteries in your brain. This creates pressure waves and subtle expansions and contractions of brain tissue. These rhythmic pulsations are synchronized with your heartbeat. So while the blood flow, though, is a major factor, it's not everything. There's cerebrospinal fluid that surrounds and cushions the brain and also plays a role in these pulsations. And these pulsations are essential for oxygen and nutrients getting to the brain and removing waste products, which makes sense because it's related to blood flow, right? However, recent research suggests that these pulsations might actually influence the activity of individual neurons in the brain, potentially affecting how we process information and form memories. Doctors are studying these pulsations to see if they can provide insights into brain disorders like Alzheimer's. It's believed that changes in brain pulsations may be an early indicator of Alzheimer's. Monitoring pulsations can help assess the severity of brain injuries and track recovery. Pulsations can be affected by stroke, and studying them has helped in the diagnosis and treatment. These pulsations are observed via advanced MRI techniques in order to visualize and measure these brain pulsations in detail. Researchers have also used electrodes to implant in the brain to directly measure the electrical activity of neurons in relation to the heartbeat. This is fascinating science stuff. The brain is this crazy thing that, we all have and people still don't really understand that well. So the idea that they're able to look at these things that occur in the brain and studying them is helpful for developing new treatments. There's also a belief that these brain heartbeats or brain pulsations can be used to develop more advanced technology that can help study the brain. Now, this is just sort of a neat story to me. I don't know it's a mystery in that it's a medical mystery and no one really knows a lot about it yet, but science is fascinating, especially health science. Yay, video games. Yay, video games is a Redditor. And this Redditor went on a massive manic posting spree in 2010. His first post started in the subreddit r/gaming about the video game Elder Scrolls, and he began posting confusing and nonsensical comments. The comments were sometimes accompanied by odd images. The behavior led to Yay Video Games being shadow banned on Reddit, meaning that their posts were no longer visible to others. The Yay Video Games Redditor is often cited as someone who is in the middle of experiencing a mental breakdown, and that this erratic behavior is part of some sort of health crisis or episode. Others believe it was dedicated and long trolling, trying to confuse and disrupt the Reddit community. And there are others believe that it was some sort of just bot that just sort of went haywire and just kept posting. Yay Video Games has become an internet legend. There is a subreddit dedicated to Yay Video Games, that it would be r/Yay Video Games. Personally, I believe that this is either a bot that just sort of went haywire, or someone who's just trolling, or someone looking for attention. The black hole information paradox. The black hole information paradox is a problem in theoretical physics. Now remember, I'm not a physicist, so I'm not qualified to discuss this, but I'm going to do the best I can. It involves the conflict between two theories, the theory of general relativity and the theory of quantum mechanics. Black holes are inescapable. According to Einstein's general relativity theory, anything that crosses a black hole's event horizon is trapped forever, including light. This means information about what fell in is gone. This means the energy that went in is gone. Quantum mechanics says that energy cannot be created or destroyed. These two ideas seem incompatible. If the information is destroyed or lost in a black hole, it violates quantum mechanics. But if the information is preserved, how does it escape the black hole's inescapable gravity? Stephen Hawking showed that black holes actually emit radiation due to quantum effects near the event horizon. This radiation causes black holes to slowly lose mass and eventually evaporate. If a black hole evaporates completely, what happened to everything that it swallowed? Does it just go away, which would violate quantum mechanics? Does it somehow emerge with the Hawking radiation? So physicists have been grappling with this paradox for decades. Some believe that the energy or information is encoded in the Hawking radiation, that the information is in the radiation that is emitted. There are also observed remnants of black holes that haven't evaporated completely and leave behind tiny remnants that preserve the energy or information. It's believed that there needs to be more research in this area and perhaps even a new theory of quantum gravity to understand what exactly happens in these black holes. Now, I don't understand these concepts very well. I have a very casual understanding of quantum mechanics and black hole theory, but I find it really interesting. And I'm just going to trust the scientists to explain to me what's going on rather than attempt to explain it myself. The Doomsday Stonehenge. The Doomsday Stonehenge refers to the Georgia Guidestones, a mysterious granite monument that was in Elbert County, Georgia from 1980 until it was partially destroyed in 2022. The structure is made of 6 granite slabs that are over 19 feet tall and weigh over 100 tons. 10 guides for humanity were inscribed in 8 modern languages and 4 ancient scripts. Like Stonehenge, the Guidestones had astronomical alignments with a slot that aligned with the sun's position throughout the year. The inscriptions advocated for things like maintaining population control, maintaining the population of the earth under 500 million, environmental protection, world government, guiding reproduction wisely. Now, this was called America's Stonehenge due to the strange nature of these stones. And, of course, they've attracted a lot of conspiracy theories. Some claim that they were built by Satanists or a secret society promoting the New World Order. Always the New World Order, right? The Guidestones have been vandalized multiple times. In July 2022, an explosion destroyed a portion of the monument, and authorities subsequently destroyed the remaining structure for safety reasons. The monument was built, or at least commissioned, by a person or group with the pseudonym R.C. Christian, who claimed to represent a small group of loyal Americans. No one knows who or what R.C. Christian was. The mystery of Doomsday Stonehenge is intriguing to a lot of people because of the apocalyptic tone in the inscriptions and the mystery about who was involved. Now, I think this one is sort of easy to say, like, yeah, whoever built this, built it to spread this message. But the fact that no one knows who built it or really what the message is sort of is fascinating. And, the question comes, well, did this person build this in earnest? Or is this just some sort of elaborate trolling? I fall onto the side of whoever built this probably meant it. They probably built it on purpose. And they meant whatever things were in this. But, it's a shame it was destroyed. I am God 4chan. Now, whenever 4chan is involved, you're about to hear some weird stuff, right? The I am God copy pasta is an example of 4chan culture. Again, a copy pasta is a strange or sometimes spooky story that gets copied and pasted in these internet forums. The copy pasta usually appears as a short, blunt declaration of godlike power and the insignificance of humanity. It's often something like, I am God, I created the universe, you are all insignificant ants to me, I can do whatever I want, and there is nothing you can do to stop me. There are a lot of variations of this post. Some of these posts may contain threats of violence or harm, although these are believed to be for shock value. And sometimes the copy pasta is used ironically or humorously. It's important to remember that this originated on 4chan. So it's almost certainly trolling. But for whatever reason, this particular post, this particular piece of copy pasta has spread all over the place and has been a very popular one. And it's become a recognizable piece of internet lore. I think it's pretty clear that this is some type of trolling, because that's generally what 4chan is for. But it is sort of fascinating that this became sort of a mainstream meme. Agartha. Agartha is a kingdom from folklore that is said to be within the Earth's core. And this is a concept that is popular in esotericism, occultism, and New Age beliefs. It's kind of a hidden world of advanced beings with a connection to the surface world. It's believed to be located within the Earth. Now, obviously, since this is legend, the stories and details change from where you hear the story. There's a question about whether there is just sort of an advanced network of tunnels in the Earth that create this area, or if just there is a large inner hollow surface. According to the lore, a few entry points are the Himalayas, the Gobi Desert, the North and South Poles, and the Kentucky Mammoth Cave. Its inhabitants are described as highly evolved beings, spiritually and technologically advanced, and living in peace and harmony. Some of the legends state that the Agarthans have influenced surface civilizations throughout history, and that they may even be monitoring our progress. The legends say that Agarthans have advanced technology such as flying vehicles and a source of energy called Vril. Not Riz, Vril. We should make Vril the new Riz. The concept of Agartha was first introduced by French occultist Alexandre Saint-Yves d'Alavendre in his 1886 book, Mission de Liende. Agatha is linked to the belief in hollow earth and has been popularized by figures such as John Sims and Cyrus Teed. Did you know that there is a hollow earth theory? It's kind of like flat earth, kind of the same idea. Now, the concept of Agartha has come up in a lot of various types of media and art, including the popular Journey to the Center of the Earth. There's no scientific evidence to support the existence of Agartha or hollow earth. Some believe that hollow earth is supposed to be a symbolic concept, that Agartha is a representation of the inner world, the subconscious, or higher states of consciousness. I think this is mostly a literary thing, and it's useful, in that context. I don't believe that the earth is actually hollow. I hope you don't. But if you do, leave a comment. Tell me about your theory, right? Not trying to start a war with the hollow earthers. Rebecca Berger. This was a tough one. Rebecca Blogger was a fitness blogger who died after an exploding whipped cream dispenser hit her in the chest, which caused a heart attack. She was 33 years old at the time. She was a fitness blogger. She would write about fitness and traveling on social media. She had 55,000 Facebook friends and 154,000 Instagram followers. According to her family, the dispenser, which was a kitchen utensil, so it wasn't a can of whipped cream, I don't think. I think it was some sort of whipped cream making thing, exploded, hit her in the chest, and caused a heart attack. It's a sad story. But you see things like this where people get hit in the chest in just the right way, can cause a heart attack, can cause someone's heart to stop. There was that Buffalo Bills football player that happened to fairly recently. Joshua Maddox. Joshua Maddox was a teenager from Woodland Park, Colorado. He was last seen on May 2008. His disappearance was widely reported, and he was considered a missing individual for many years. In August 2015, his body was discovered in the chimney of a vacant cabin near his home. There were unusual circumstances related to his death. The cabin belonged to an individual named Chuck Murphy, who was demolishing the cabin when his body was found. The autopsy concluded that Joshua had no signs of trauma, drugs, or alcohol in his system, and the death was ruled as accidental. Authorities believe he may have tried to break into the cabin by shimmering down through the chimney. However, it was a freezing night. His clothes were found inside the cabin. He was found in the chimney upside down. So one of the beliefs is that perhaps he had some sort of panic. He took off his clothes. He went outside for some reason, got locked out, and then tried to go in through the attic. Now, when I was doing research for this, I found something that I have actually never seen before in any of these videos about Joshua Maddox. There is a Reddit post, and again, take it with a grain of salt because it's Reddit, but from a Redditor named Sarah_Renee14. This Reddit post was from 11 months ago, and it only has 8 points, so it hasn't been seen, or 8 upvotes. It hasn't been seen very much. The Reddit post says, Josh was one of my close friends. He was pretty reclusive, and there were only a few of us that truly knew him. We all tried to go to the cops and tell them that Andy Newman killed Josh. No one cared. Andy Newman had already been implicated in a murder in New Mexico and was bragging about putting Josh in a hole. No one took us seriously. Josh didn't do this to himself. He was eccentric at times, but he would have never just crawled into a chimney without clothes. It breaks my heart that this investigation was closed and that they demolished the property. Now look, this is a Reddit post by some anonymous user on the internet. And as far as I can tell, there hasn't been any actual proof posted by this poster to establish that this is real or not. But this is a popular unsolved disappearance case, or rather, this is a popular unsolved mystery, and any of these stories is sort of interesting. So, was foul play involved here? Is a good question. I don't know the answer to that. The foul play angle is weird. I think that there needs to be, I would need more information, and you would think that there would be forensic evidence that would be able to establish whether or not foul play was involved. But a lot of people believe that foul play was involved, so you can take that however you will. Larry Eli Murillo Moncada was a 24-year-old man from Council Bluffs, Iowa, who went missing in November 2009. He was an employee at a local supermarket. Larry went missing after leaving his parents' home during a snowstorm. He was reportedly upset about not taking his prescription medication at the time. In January 2019, almost 10 years later, his body was found behind a large refrigerator unit at the same supermarket where he worked. Workers were removing the equipment from the store, which had been closed down a few years prior when they made the discovery. It's believed that Larry climbed on top of the coolers, which was apparently a common practice for employees of this location, to take a break, and fell into a narrow gap behind them. He became trapped and couldn't escape, and his death was ruled accidental. It's always so wild to me when these cases, they find these bodies in these areas that you think, while they might be hidden, they're not exactly hard to find. You would think cadaver dogs might be able to find these people. But a sad story nonetheless. Isaiah Otieno. Isaiah Otieno was a pedestrian who was among 4 people killed when a helicopter crashed into a residential neighborhood in Canada. According to witnesses, the helicopter had 3 people on board and appeared to hover as if it was looking for a landing spot before it crashed onto a street and burst into flames in Cranbrook, British Columbia. You want to talk about bad luck? Getting hit by a crashing helicopter is not something I needed to add to my quiver of worries. You know, my anxieties are already a rich tapestry. And so we get to add now, oh yeah, a helicopter might just crash on my head. Lee Sang-soop. Apologize if I mispronounced that, but Lee Sang-soop was a South Korean man who tragically died in 2005 after a prolonged gaming session. He was reportedly addicted to the game StarCraft. He spent excessive amounts of time in internet cafes, often neglecting his basic needs like sleep and food. In August 2005, Lee entered an internet cafe and played StarCraft for approximately 50 hours straight with minimal breaks. He eventually collapsed due to exhaustion and heart failure. Despite being rushed to the hospital, he was pronounced dead. His death brought attention to the dangers of gaming addiction and the importance of maintaining a healthy balance between virtual and real life. It served as a wake-up call for many gamers and sparked discussions about responsible gaming habits and the need for support systems for those struggling with addiction. Lee Sang-soop's story is a tragic reminder of the potential consequences of addiction. And addiction can come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. You know, people think of alcohol addiction, they think of drug addiction, but there's many different kinds of addiction. Gaming addiction, gambling addiction, all sorts of different ways you can become addicted. The 2018 Horizon Air Q400 incident. The 2018 Horizon Air Q400 incident happened at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport on August 10, 2018. Richard Russell, a 29-year-old ground service agent for Horizon Air with no piloting experience, stole a Bombardier Q400 turboprop airplane from the airport. He was the only person on board.
It was August 10th, 2018. Richard Russell, also known as Bebo, clocked into work at SeaTac Airport at 2:36 p.m. You see him here briefly showing his badge to TSA. He walks through the employee security checkpoint. He's wearing a black t-shirt that says the sky's no limit. He grabs his backpack and continues. After this moment, 5 hours go by, according to the FBI report. It's unclear what he was doing for this time. Around 7:15 p.m., he arrived with a tow vehicle at the cargo area at the far north end of SeaTac, known as Cargo 1. Air traffic control started to sense something was not right when trying to make contact.
The Dash 8 on runway 16 center, say your call sign.
That's Russell on the left side of your screen in the tow vehicle. He's got complete control over the aircraft. You can see him release the plane from the vehicle, and the plane starts rolling forward. He really only has a few seconds to start running towards the door of the plane. Watch him as he opens the cabin door and jumps in. He pulls the door back up very quickly.
Seattle ground, Horizon guy, about to take off. It's going to be crazy.
Tower, you need to call and scramble now.
Russell can be seen taking off in this new video. Several angles show the Horizon airplane leaving ground.
There's an emergency situation going on, and FAA Tower's not accepting any aircraft right now, not letting anybody depart.
While up in the air, Russell continued to radio in.
Hey, I found myself in a bit of a predicament. I'm in the air right now and just kind of soaring around.
At one point, he said he was going to check out Mount Rainier. An hour and 13 minutes after taking off, Russell crashed the plane on a remote Pierce County island, ending one of the most serious domestic airline security breaches since 9/11. The FBI ruled his death a suicide. Madison Wade, King 5 News.
Air traffic controllers made contact with Russell and tried to guide him to a safe landing, but he was erratic and expressed thoughts of self-harm. The FBI and the National Transportation Safety Board conducted a thorough investigation, and they found no evidence of terrorism or any possible connection to a wider plot. No one knows why Russell did this. People described him as a quiet and well-liked person, but he had expressed some mental struggles in online posts. The police investigation revealed that he had researched flight simulation software and unaliving methods. The incident raised serious concerns about airport security protocols and the access that ground crew members have to aircraft. Once again, this is another great example of how mental health in our country is neglected, how people are looked down upon for seeking help with mental health, and how that culture needs to change. Thankfully, no one else was injured in this case, but Russell's life could have been saved too if he had sought proper mental health care. If you are struggling, seek mental health care. There's nothing wrong with it. I've done it. Lots of people have done it. The Coco Listil epidemic. The Coco Listil epidemic was a series of outbreaks that ravaged the indigenous populations of Mexico during the 16th century. Coco Listil was characterized by high fevers, severe headaches, dizziness, dark urine, bloody diarrhea, abdominal pain, jaundice, and bleeding from the eyes, nose, and mouth. Death often occurred within a few days. The mortality rate of this disease was extremely high, with estimates suggesting that some outbreaks killed up to 80% of those infected. Primarily indigenous people of Mexico were affected, although there was some impact on European colonialists. The most devastating epidemics occurred between 1545 and 1548, 1576 and 1578. Coco Listil caused a massive decline in the indigenous population of Mexico, contributing significantly to the social and cultural disruption following the Spanish conquest. Some estimates suggest that millions died. It was originally thought to be European disease like typhus or measles. Recent research suggests that Coco Listil may have been caused by a native viral hemorrhagic fever, possibly related to salmonella. Drought and famine likely played a role in weakening the population and making them more susceptible to the disease. Coco Listil is a crucial part of understanding the demographic and cultural changes in Mexico after European contact. The exact cause of this disease remains a medical mystery and is a subject of ongoing research. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if colonialism played an impact in this. And it sort of suggests that it did, right? The famine and the droughts made people weaker, made them more susceptible to this disease, even if the disease wasn't necessarily directly from colonialism. I mean, it's no surprise that colonialism had a devastating impact on indigenous people. The Hollandwell incident. The Hollandwell incident refers to an event that occurred in 1980 at the Hollandwell Showground in Nottinghamshire, England. During a junior brass band competition, hundreds of children, around 300 of the 500 present, suddenly began experiencing fainting attacks, nausea, vomiting, and other symptoms. Others reported headaches and sore throats. The symptoms came on quickly and mysteriously. Most children recovered relatively quickly once they were removed from the showground and given fresh air. Despite investigations, the exact cause of the incident was never determined. Some people believe that this was a mass hysteria situation where the stressful environment of the competition combined with the hot weather and fatigue may have triggered a mass psychogenic illness. Psychogenic illness is when physical symptoms spread through a group due to psychological factors rather than a physical cause. Or, people just sort of start feeling a certain way because they see other people feeling a certain way. Another theory suggests that pesticides used in nearby fields may have drifted out of the showground and caused the symptoms. However, no specific pesticides were identified, and the tests were inconclusive. There are other theories such as contaminated water, food poisoning, or even some unknown environmental factor. Now, this incident is, sort of a fascinating example of mass illness. And, quickly onsetting mass illness, which is sort of fascinating, especially since it all sort of dissipated rather quickly. Now, I know that the leading theory is sort of a mass hysteria, and that might be it. Another idea was, well, was there something environmental that caused this? I think that that's also likely. Maybe it wasn't pesticide. Maybe there was some sort of gas that was leaking, or some sort of pollen or fungus in the area. I don't know for sure, but I think that is a pretty good idea. The year 2038 problem. Remember Y2K? Well, you're going to love the sequel, Y2K 38. The year 2038 is a potential timekeeping error that could occur in some computer systems on January 19th, 2038. Here's why. Unix time. Many computer systems use a system called Unix time, which stores the current time as the number of seconds that have passed since January 1st, 1970 at 000000. Older systems often use a 32-bit integer to store this number. The maximum value a 30-bit integer can hold is 2 trillion. I'm just going to say the numbers 2,147,483,647.4. On January 19th, 2038, at 3:14:07 UTC, the Unix time count will exceed this number. When the counter reaches its limit, it rolls over to a negative number. This could cause programs and systems that rely on this time data to malfunction or crash. The issue will primarily affect older systems that still use 32-bit integers for timekeeping. Many modern systems have already transitioned to 64-bit integers, which have a much larger capacity and won't be affected. But there'll be a new one, the 2090 something. But we'll be dead by then. Most of us will be dead by then. But older embedded systems in critical infrastructure like power plants and medical devices could be affected. Now, upgrading to 64-bit systems effectively solves the problem. The problem is to update the software. Sometimes hardware needs to be updated, which costs money. And as we know, in this country, we don't like fixing infrastructure. Now, experts believe that the year 2038 problem will be less disruptive than the Y2K bug. Many systems have already been updated, and people are much more aware of the issue. And we've got 14 years. So it's probably not going to cause the widespread chaos that Y2K did. Not that Y2K really did spread mass chaos. I remember really rooting for Y2K on New Year's Eve, 1999. I was really hoping that something would happen, and nothing happened. But it's sort of funny that we sort of have these built-in times that, when whoever created this decided, 2038 is so long from now, we'll never have to worry about this. And then all of a sudden it's 2038. Go ahead and make sure you're following me on Blue Sky and TikTok. My username is AKBruce. Follow me on Twitter. My username there is AKBruce. If there is a spooky and disturbing story that you would like me to cover, please send me an email. My email address is thespookylawyer@gmail.com. This has been part 2 of Tier 4 of the Iceberg series. I will get working on part 3, and we'll have that up soon also. We also have a variety of other exciting stuff going on this month, so please keep watching. I appreciate you watching my videos. Please make sure that you're subscribed to this channel. Please like and share these videos. Share these videos with all your friends. Tell them tell them check out this guy named Kenny. He does spooky videos, and see what they say. Again, I appreciate your support. And remember, stay spooky.